All right, welcome back. So I'm gonna close out week 3. Everything's been going great. I have made it this far, and I've done everything they've asked. There are some things that are optional. Up until then, I've been doing those too. But this might be the first week where something's got to give. There's just a lot of optional materials. There's an hour-long lecture given to Google. There's a 26-minute video here, so they're optional materials. In week 2 there was a book assigned. Now I did check the book out from my local library, which if anyone's a follower of this channel should be familiar with being able to use your local library, so you can see how easy it is. My local library offers online services through a program called Libby. So all I need to do is open my bookmark there, and then click on my library here, and you can see the recommended book, Altered Traits here. I have access to via Amazon as if I had paid the $13. So all I need to do is click Read Now in Kindle app, and I can read it the exact same way I would have if I had paid the $13. And I've got options too. I can also decide to read it with. Actually, I can only. I guess when you check it out and you decide to read it with Kindle. Then it looks like you don't have the option to read it in Libby, but that's fine. Either are fine for me. So just want to make sure I'm always talking about that, because that's kind of a game changer. I've realized that a lot of the information I get from YouTube, there are some gems in the rough, but mostly it's 15 ways you can clean out your colon. Stay tuned for number 14. It's the best. It's like I need a better source of information. So the public library is perfect. And some of the favorite YouTubers, Ali Abdal's a pretty good one, although he does get a little bit he's constantly trying to sell things. One of the things he's trying to sell, though, is his book, and you can get it for free from the library. So just go right to the source, get past all the ads, get past all the kind of time-wasting things in the video, and just check out his book from the library, and there you go, your favorite YouTuber. You just get pure, you can get their book for free. All right, so moving on, let's start with the formal practice. Let's start with the informal practice, actually. So they want 6 of these done. And then the 7th and beyond are optional. I'm not going to do the optional ones for these. I'm kind of struggling to keep up, so let's do that. So let's come up with an unpleasant feeling. Like what was unpleasant? And they want you to do these at night as you're winding down before bed. But usually when I'm winding down before bed at night, I'm just so completely and utterly exhausted that all I can do is just go lay down at some point. I just feel absolutely defeated. So I really can't pull up a spreadsheet or do anything like that, because I just don't have the ability to do anything but go to bed. So I try to do it in the morning, so I can think back and remember. But now I'm kind of doing it a little bit later in the morning. So this is an unpleasant events calendar. Before that, they had pleasant events. Now we're thinking of unpleasant events. So what was the experience? An example would be if you are waiting for the cable company to come fix the line, the cable's out. You have an important meeting. So that is that. I guess so I guess my answer is not having internet on my phone. Was I aware while it was happening? No, because I had to think back about that. It wasn't an easy one. How did your body in detail feel during this experience? I felt a bit needy and embarrassed. Had to just trust that things will work out. Felt disarmed. Felt out of control. All right. And then, what moods, feelings, and thoughts accompanied this event? Just kind of like less empowered. Less able to change gears and go with the flow, because I wouldn't have driving instructions, so less flexibility. All right. And then, what sensations do you notice now as you write this? So I notice kind of an urge to set up my new plan, frustration that my old plan, after like 10 years, randomly was deleted by automation. Disappointment. With my plan. Old plan. Apprehension with going with the same company. Okay, so there we go. Next is the formal practice, and so that's the end of the informal practice. Just 6 days. Everything else is optional. So same deal for the formal practice. So this week I did yoga. I did 3 rounds of yoga, which is a good light body weight exercise, especially for someone like me who's I think as of today, I'm now back into class 2 obesity, but I'm right on the edge of class 2 and class 1. So classes of obesity. So class 1 is 30 to 35. Class 2 is 35 to 40. So if I do a BMI calculator, so I'm right in the middle. I'm 6'1.5". So it just depends. So this morning I'm weighing at 290. So I'm definitely not in class 3 obesity, which is a huge relief. And then it gets a little higher if I'm shorter. But even then, I'm a little bit at risk for class 3 obesity. But I'm pretty much good with class 2. So yesterday after a diet plan blitz, I weighed in at 2. So I'm really close to the edge of class 1 obesity. So I should be able to get back into that class 1 range, which would be really nice. So and I bring that up because I was talking about the yoga. So what this is they want you to do the yoga. They want you to do a body scan meditation. They want you to do a sitting meditation. So they want you to alternate. So primarily this week was the yoga. You're going to do 3 sessions of yoga, and then you're going to do 2 sessions of sitting meditation and 1 session of body scan meditation. So it's a little bit of physical activity. The yoga itself has some kind of core strength exercises that are a bit challenging. And then the sitting meditation is different than the body scan because they want you to sit upright, which can be challenging since it's a half an hour. So Yeah, and then right after you're done, you need to put in a few comments. So my comments, yeah, as I've shown, kind of the biggest problem in my life right now, and the biggest thing I want to address is my obesity. Even getting it down to class 1 would be a huge success for me. Staying out of that class 3 territory is really important. But ideally getting down to a really healthy weight. That would be game changing, and I think that's a big reason why I haven't been able to pass the CCIE. Now I know, there's plenty of people who are obese who have passed these high level exams. So, it's just, for me, it's I just think this is a good thing to focus on first. I know for other people that's not the case, and being overweight definitely does not mean that you are in some way worse at jobs that do not require a physical element. All right, so at knowledge work. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear about that in my own mind too, because it's so easy to kind of stigmatize obese people, and as an obese person myself, I definitely don't want to be doing that. All right, so this next is the sitting meditation. So it's going to be about a half an hour. Okay, so sitting. I like to do the video version with closed captioning, so that there's not as much dead air, so you can at least. All right, and then I need a quick break. I need to check my output, so let's check the output.
This segment guides you through a sitting meditation with breath as the primary object of awareness.
All right, so I need a quick break before I start this, and then I will start it, and that'll be that. All right, I'm back. I'm not quite ready to start because one thing I think makes a lot of sense is to habit stack. So I'm having a little bit of a flare up in my tennis elbow, so I might take this time to also ice my elbow. I also have a red light panel, so I might want to shine that somewhere. So I'm thinking about habit stacking. It's really just a procrastination and a delay in the end. So I think I'm gonna just forget about the red light panel, because shining that sometimes gets a little bit tricky. And I'll ice my elbow and then do it with my elbow icing. So with that, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and I'll be habit stacking this while icing my elbow. So with no further ado, it's time to knock this off and be done with week 3.
This segment guides you through a sitting meditation with breath as the primary object of awareness. Arranging to spend this time in a comfortable but attentive posture, preferably sitting up without leaning back for support if that's possible for you, and at a time and in a place where you won't be disturbed. Sitting in a dignified posture, head balanced on shoulders, arms and hands resting in a comfortable position. This is a time for allowing ourselves to switch from our normal mode of doing and moving and reacting to one of simply being, just being attentive to what is happening within your own awareness right here and right now. And as you sit, just noticing sensations of breath. Just noticing how your abdomen moves on each in-breath and out-breath. The movement of air through your nostrils. The slight movement of chest and shoulders. Just bringing awareness to whichever part of the breath cycle and wherever in your body it is most vivid, whether it be your tummy or your chest or your shoulders or the movement of air through your nostrils. noticing the entire cycle of breath. From the movement of the air coming in and filling the lungs and extending the abdomen slightly. The movement of air going out. And being aware of the pause, the stopping point in between the in-breath and the out-breath and the out-breath and the next in-breath. It's all one movement. Even through the changing of direction, just noticing where that pause is. Seeing to what degree you can be aware of the whole entire cycle. Recognizing that each part of the cycle is different than another part. And this time through may be different than the last time through, and each one is absolutely unique in its own way if you pay attention. You'll notice your attention from time to time shifting away from breath. The mind may wander into fantasies or memories, thoughts of the day, worries that you might have, things you need to do. And without giving yourself a hard time, when you notice that that's happened, just gently but firmly bring your awareness back to the sensations of breathing. The actual physical sensations of breath as it moves through your body. Being aware of where the mind goes. Gently shifting your awareness to sensations of breath. And noticing the tendency to want to control your breathing. Letting the the quality of attention be light and easy. One of simply observing and noticing. Just as if you were on a float on a gently undulating sea. Where you go up with one wave and down with the next. You don't control the duration of the waves or the depth between the waves. You're just riding. And it's gently coming back to sensations of breathing. You may notice that there are sounds in addition to the sounds that come from this recording. Sounds of traffic or movement or something else going on. And just noticing that your attention is moved to that perception of sound. And staying with it just long enough to notice the quality of the sound. Sound is vibration, tone, volume or intensity. Being aware of the tendency of the mind to label sound as traffic, or as voices, or as music. And coming closer to the actual experience of the sound as it hits your eardrums. Qualities of pitch or rhythm or intensity. Separating out the actual reception of sound from the labels we put on it. And if you've been paying attention to sound or notice that you've gone off to be noticing the perceptions of sound, bringing your attention once again back to breath. letting your breath be your anchor of awareness. So that each time your awareness goes somewhere else, just gently coming back to breath without judgment or any upset, if you can do that. Just saying, oh, my attention's gone somewhere else, just coming back to breath. Noticing the tendency to have an opinion about things, about liking the way things are going right now, not liking it, finding it uncomfortable. That too can be an object of awareness, just noticing that you have an opinion about things often. So that's my liking mind, it's liking this. There's my critical mind, saying would rather have things be different than they are. And that too can be noticed. And building the capacity to notice liking or disliking and not to have to do anything about it. How freeing that is. And as you notice that happening, just bringing your awareness to the physical sensations of breath, wherever it's most vivid for you. Just riding the entire cycle, one cycle after another. You may notice your attention shifting to body sensations, sensations of achiness or discomfort, of tension. And as you notice these sensations of discomfort, if that happens for you, there's several things that can be done with such a sensation. And one is to simply, if it's one that can be remedied by shifting a little bit, one way to deal with the sensation is to allow yourself to shift. But in doing that first becoming aware of the sensation, noticing precisely where the achiness or the tension might be, And once you're aware of where that is, developing an intention to move and moving mindfully and with full intent to make that motion. That's one way to deal with a strong sensation. A second way, and neither one is better than the other as long as full awareness is brought to all parts, is to notice that sensation, noticing it in its fullness, being curious about the extent of it, how your experience of it is at the moment, the actual physical sensations of tension or of throbbing or of tightness or of pulling or tingling. And the second way of dealing with it is just to notice that it's possible to stay for a moment longer with that sensation and experience this pure sensation without the labels of discomfort or tension or achiness, just noticing just where it is. Noticing your experience of it. And staying with it without having to react to it, at least for the moment. And if your attention keeps getting pulled back to that area of intense sensation, knowing that you have those two choices of forming an intention to do something about it and mindfully doing it, but forming the intention first, or bringing your intention and attention right into it, being curious about it. How big is it? How long is it? What quality does it have? How is it changing over time? And wherever the mind goes, in terms of thoughts or liking or disliking, perceptions of sensation or hearing of sound, or feelings of peace or of sadness, or of frustration, or of anticipation. Just noticing these are all thought forms and bringing awareness to sensations, to the movement of breath. being curious about breath, observing that no two breaths are exactly the same. And seeing if it's possible to have a friendly attitude towards whatever comes into your awareness. Now, if your mind has gone off on a fantasy or a thought or a judgment or a worry or a sensation or a sound, just in a friendly way, noticing that this is happening and coming back to breath. Recognizing the entire cycle of awareness is important to this experience, including the movement from breath and including the coming back. Nothing to do but ride the waves of breath. seeing if it's possible at those moments when your awareness has gone somewhere else, noticing how that flicker of attention happens, that moment when you realize it is somewhere else and somewhere other than breath. And at that moment, seeing if it's possible to have an attitude of celebration, of congratulation, of recognition that this is a moment of awareness. You acknowledge yourself for noticing you've gone somewhere else. And just easily bring your attention back to breath in a friendly and a non-judgmental way. As this meditation comes to an end, recognizing that you've spent this time intentionally aware of your moment-to-moment experience, nourishing and strengthening your ability to be with whatever comes your way, building the capacity for opening the senses to the vividness, to the aliveness of the present moment, expanding your skill to be curious and available about whatever presents itself without judgment. And when you're ready, allowing the eyes to let some light in if you've had them closed. And permitting yourself now to shift or to stretch in whatever way feels comfortable as the sitting meditation ends.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lynn.
All right, so that's it. So that's it for week 3. All I need to do now is leave some comments here. So go back and review that. So just a few words. It doesn't have to be complicated. I got less than 10 words there. So what came up, how it felt, and then once you have done at least 6 days of practices and feel you've gotten the essence of this week, you may go on to the next week. So there we go. Here's my 6th. I definitely feel like I've gotten the essence of it. So so my mind was a lot more active. Than usual. My obesity made sitting upright for so long very difficult. And then the really unusual thing I noticed is I developed uncomfortable and painful heartburn during the meditation near the end that I did not have before I started. So that was kind of fascinating to me because, you know, I wasn't eating anything. I was just sitting and being mindful of my breath and attempting to maintain an upright posture. And in doing so, my heart. I started to get a heartburn. So let me add that. So was surprised that in simply sitting still, trying to maintain an upright posture and focus on my breath, I developed heartburn. So it's really not a direct result of something I eat or well, I mean, it could be a delayed reaction. So, but that just really surprised me. So that's it. Overcomplicating it is not good. So there we go. I completed everything for week 3. I'm on track. Now I do have the supplemental materials. They are all optional. Some are more possible than others to get through. The videos and the reading are mandatory, and I got all of those done. And then the practice, I just finished that today. So officially, I am completely done and ready for week 4. So let's do a little bit of a skim on week 4. So week 4, we're going to work specifically on stress. So let's see kind of what we got here. So we don't have any super long ones. That'll be good. And now we're moving into yoga 2, so that might be a little bit more difficult. But it looks like we have another practice sheet, so that could be tricky in week 4. But yeah, so now let me try to do what I can to get as many of these supplemental materials out of the way. So I think I will try to get this one done, but I'll have to do the others in another video. And if I never get to them, that's totally fine. They're optional. But for now, let me try to knock this one off. All right, and before I do that, I do want to take a quick break, and I can watch this in faster speed. So let me do that. I'll do a sound check now. Okay, and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I think I can just have this be in the background.
Some of my favorite stories are ones that happen right after people get out of retreats. And one of them that I've shared with some of you, a woman was having to travel and switch planes, and she was exhausted. And so she was tired, she was hungry, she got some cookies, put them in her purse, sat down at a table. There was another man nearby. She also got a newspaper. Well, he was reading his newspaper, and she took a cookie, ate it, then he did the same thing. He reached into the bag and took a cookie, ate it, and she was very confused and weirded out by that, because she didn't know him. But she, didn't want to make a scene, so she just took another cookie and ate it, and he did the same. And it kept going, and she was getting angrier and angrier until she took, a cookie, and then there was just one more, and he broke it in half. He gave her half, he ate the other half, and then he left. Well, sometime later, the public announcement system called her to her gate, and much to her surprise, when she reached in to get her ticket, she found her bag of cookies. She had been eating his.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Now, part of why I really like that story is because we so live in our narrative inside, and a story in our mind of what is actually happening. Now, we're not always reading reality quite as she did, but sometimes what's going on, our storyline has a useful representation of the world. Somebody is taking advantage of us, or somebody might be treating us in a disrespectful way, or something might be going on where it's completely appropriate for us to respond and draw boundaries and so on. And so often, and this is, you might remember Mark Twain's one of his famous comments, that the worst things in my life never actually happened. So often we are moving through our day with a story about what is either wrong right now or what could go wrong. And if we're not totally conscious of that story, our body is kind of living in that mentality. So our inner story is based on fear beliefs that were developed very early. And for most of us, it's, we have some difficult experiences with caregivers, with our environment, and we start believing how we can't trust certain things or how something's wrong with us. And then because our survival brain has a scan for what's wrong, we collect evidence. And so we each collect evidence to kind of have some certainty. It gives us a sense of being on top of things, even if it's bad news, about what can go wrong and what is wrong. So we each, to different degrees, have some core beliefs that have a reality that's limiting. And those beliefs are informing us today. They filter things. They filter how we are with other people. They filter what we perceive about other people. Okay. So you might think of how that can happen. Maybe, you were in a family where you had an older sibling that was a bully, or a parent that was drinking and became a bully, or something like that. And then what happens? Well, we are around other people that might have some aggressiveness in their temperament and anticipate that they're going to push us around and send out those signals of fear or insecurity or mistrust, and that almost provokes and brings on more. Then we just keep on living cycles based on those beliefs. Or maybe for some of us, parents that were overly busy, preoccupied, so when we wanted attention, they kind of pushed us aside. Or maybe we were really neglected. What happens? There's a belief. People don't really want to be with me. Either they're not interested in me or I'm really a turnoff, but there's a belief that gets in there. And then what happens when we have that belief? Well, that belief creates certain behaviors that send out certain messages that we keep on recreating the past. So I often turn to that quote by Gandhi, and he talked about how our beliefs really create our way of acting and speaking, and that ends up creating our whole character, and that ends up creating our destiny. It's based on the law of karma, that when this, then this. And so the sad thing is that as long as we believe our beliefs and don't investigate them, they create a reality that can perpetuate itself. Does that make sense? Yeah. The good news is that we can investigate. We can begin to challenge the storyline. And when people deepen their meditation practice, which is a practice that says, be here and see what's really going on, and I especially see this when I do week-long retreats, because it's more concentrative and people can end up getting to a quieter place and really see more clearly the nature of things. One of the reports at the end of retreats are that, and it's usually framed like this, I realized I didn't have to believe my thoughts. Now that might sound simple, I don't have to believe my thoughts, but that is opening the gate to freedom. I don't have to believe my thoughts. Or sometimes the realization is I'm not my thoughts, which is a very similar experience, that this world I've created, that's not who I am. The truth is something much bigger. That self that I'm, having these ongoing storylines and narratives about is just a bunch of images and words that are formed from historic kind of beliefs, but there's something much more mysterious and true that's going on. I don't have to believe my thoughts. There's a Tibetan teacher that some of you met here who has been a tremendous inspiration for me, and that's Tsoknyi Rinpoche. He has a phrase that describes this realization. It's real but not true. That's the way he says it. That when we have these beliefs and feelings that go with them, that's all real. Meaning, yes, the belief's actually happening, and yes, the feelings are actually being felt. It's real. But it's not the truth. In other words, what its belief is, what its message is not truth. It's happening, but it's not the reality, the truth of what's really existing. Real but not true. So if we're suffering, we are caught in a limiting reality, one that's real, we're experiencing it, but it's not true. Our idea is not true. It's a fragment of a larger truth. So Rumi writes about this in a few different places. I'll read a few of his verses. But in one place he writes about this tangle of fear thinking, and he says, why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open? If you can just see, I don't have to believe this. The door's already open. We don't even have to open a door. It's like there's already the truth. It's already here. It's just a realization of, that story is just a story. So tonight, what this is leading to, what I'd like to explore with you is how this realization that our beliefs and emotions are real but not true can really allow us to walk through the prison door. And I want to say in advance that I feel like this is a practice that's for over the long haul. We might leave here tonight with a little better of a conceptual understanding of how powerful this might be, but the more times that you catch a belief and say, wait a minute, I don't have to believe it, and your body kind of gets that that's true, the more you'll feel some space open up. And naturally, I'm going to ask you to choose some belief, some place you get caught to experiment with tonight. So you might be thinking about that as you listen, okay? All right, so in general, what are the kind of thoughts and beliefs that we subscribe to that create suffering? Just sense for yourself what comes to mind. And I'll just throw out some. For most of us, a kind of thought that creates suffering is, I'm bad or I'm flawed. Or even the other side, I'm superior to everybody else. I'm actually smarter, or I'm actually more ethical. Or they create separation. Any belief that creates separation is a belief that creates suffering. So what else? I'm unlovable, right? I'm unworthy. I'm unsafe. These are the kind of beliefs that keep us stuck. And they're propagated a lot through the culture. Some cultures propagate limiting beliefs more than others, I suspect. I haven't done a cross-cultural comparison on this, but you can really feel it in cultures that have kind of rigid religious beliefs that are telling us that we're fundamentally impure, flawed, that we must redeem ourselves, that we're starting in the red. We have to do things to be saved because we're fundamentally something's wrong. Well, that sets the groundwork pretty well for a lot of us, right? Remind you of one of my favorite monastery stories where a monk arrives at the monastery and he's assigned to helping the other monks copy the old canons and laws of the church by hand. But he realizes they're copying from copies, and he realizes that could be a problem. Because if there's a mistake in any of the copies, then they're just going to perpetuate the mistake. It's the same idea with beliefs. If we believe something and we act according to it, we're just going to perpetuate a false belief. So they're doing that with these scriptures and so on. So, he challenges it, and the abbot says, we've been copying from copies for centuries, but I'll go check it out. So he goes into the dark caves that are underneath the monastery, and these are where the original manuscripts kind of locked in a vault. It hasn't been opened for hundreds of years. Hours go by, nobody sees the abbot. So finally, this young monk gets worried. So he goes downstairs, and what he sees is this abbot is banging his head against the wall and crying uncontrollably. So he's, Father, what's wrong? And in a choking voice, the old abbot says, the word was celebrate. So it's fun, but how many of us got messages and believe those messages that there's actually something dangerous about enjoying too much? That if something good happens, something bad might be around the corner, so we get a little bit worried. Does this make sense? It's not so easy just to open up to good things. We often feel I'm not deserving. Often, in some level, we feel we can't trust ourselves, we can't trust our bodies, we can't trust our sexuality, hence a lot of the religious rules and regs. And in some basic way, we can't trust our aliveness. That these emotions, these passions, these feelings are not reliable. We can't listen to them. It's not okay how we are. We're flawed. So, prevents us from savoring life, these beliefs. Now, we also have beliefs that are perpetrated by racial, ethnic groups, those in power primarily, that cause us to hurt others. I'm thinking right now a lot of the recent tragedy in the Sikh temple in Wisconsin. I spent many years with the Sikhs and have a real sense of appreciation for Sikhism, and so it's a little more personal for me. And it's yet another example, of beliefs that end up creating violence. And we can see it in so many places. We can see it, we see it in Wisconsin. We also see it when we go to war and our military attacks in Afghanistan and innocent civilians go. And what's the reason we're there and how come we're doing this? In some way, there's a creation of an evil other, a belief in a bad other that keeps us at war with each other through the centuries. It has to be there. We see it, Syria, the dictatorship going against its own people. A bad other that warrants violent attacks. You have to have a belief like that for violence to come up in the level it does. So we have these deeply built-in notions of this is right and this is wrong and this is how people should look and this is how people should act and this is how I should be. And it's constantly moving through our brain, monitoring and filtering everything that goes on, these standards and ideas. So we read people through this veil of our beliefs. Now, some of you might remember this inquiry. You can imagine, and I'm bringing it in because we're about to have some elections here, that it's time to elect a new world leader, okay? And your vote counts. Only your vote counts. So I want you to listen carefully. So here are the facts about 3 leading candidates. Okay, you ready? 1, candidate A associates with crooked politicians and consults with astrologists. He's had 2 mistresses. He also chain smokes and drinks 8 to 10 martinis a day. That's your first choice. Candidate B, he was kicked out of office twice, sleeps until noon, used opium in college, and drinks a quart of whiskey every evening. That's your second choice. Candidate C, he's a decorated war hero, vegetarian, doesn't smoke, drinks an occasional beer, and never cheated on his wife. Okay? So, you might feel this is a setup, but I'm going to say, so which of these candidates would you choose? How many for candidate A? We have a few. Sprinkling here. How about candidate B? He's the one that was kicked out of office twice, sleeps until noon, used opium in college, and drinks a quart of whiskey. How many? I see a sprinkling of hands. How many for candidate C, the vegetarian who doesn't smoke? I see more hands. Okay. I'm going to tell you who they are. Candidate A, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Candidate B, Winston Churchill. I didn't know he slept until noon, but I knew about the opium. Candidate C is Hitler. Yeah. Yeah, vegetarian, right. Yeah. He doesn't want to hurt animals, So here's the reason I share this. It's just that we live in a lot of assumptions that we don't change.
Sorry, I just need to intervene there because Hitler wasn't a vegetarian. He had sausages regularly. Liver. He had liver sausages regularly. Yeah. So there's a whole article on this. So it was only near the end of his diet. And it's not very yeah. So he died in 45, and he consumed late as so and he only put on it by his doctors, so he self-identified as vegetarian, which way back then had quite a different meaning than it does now. So it's it's not accurate to say, in my opinion, that he was a vegetarian, especially not for ethical reasons. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that there's a Wikipedia article on this, and perhaps it's an oversimplification.
Challenge. We live in what I call the trance of the unreal other, and I'm going to be talking about this more. I have a night that I'm going to be really exploring this with you in September. But we live with our ideas about others, about ourselves, and about the world. And illusion can only exist until we challenge it. It can only exist until we challenge it. And if we don't, it propagates these stereotypes, not just a sense of bad self, but the stereotypes that we know so well that shame and oppress and marginalize minority people, racial, sexual, gender orientation, religion. It has us create separation and hurt others. So I'm going to give you some examples through the rest of this talk of real but not true. And the first one just to share with you is of a very dear friend who's a brilliant woman, a brilliant African-American, an academic, also consulting, community activism, hung in with white institutions in terms of her schooling, her teaching, her work. And so she always had to work extra hard, to get recognition and working against a lot of the barriers that come with being just assumed to be an outsider. Very painful. The message that she felt like she got was basically, you're less valuable and you don't belong. Just now, she's, because I just talked to her this week, she's going through another cycle of revisiting how much that message got internalized. So she became her own enemy by being in situations, assuming in some way that that's what people were feeling, anticipating rejection, anticipating not being valued, having her defenses up prematurely, being angry, and then actually creating the situation of being alienated. So she's owning it. She's getting that she internalized it, and she's now helping to create the situations. She also gets that it's absolutely pervasive through the culture, and that she was one of the victims of that. Not in a way that, oh, I feel victimized, but an honest recognition that our culture puts down certain people. So her work now is to really bring alive this kind of practice of saying it's real. Yeah, the hurt, the feelings of being marginalized, the pain of this is real. So holding that with compassion. But it's not true that I'm unworthy. It's not true that I'm not valuable. Challenging that. And she feels like every time she goes through the cycle and she goes deeper into real but not true, she's actually able to live from a kind of competence that attracts and that's able to communicate in a more clear way. Again, our beliefs create feelings. Our feelings create actions. Our action starts molding our temperament, our character. It creates a kind of karmic destiny. And we can change that. And the only place we can change our destiny is in this moment to sense the storyline going on, however we make ourselves wrong, however we make someone else wrong, and investigate. Pause and look more deeply. Okay? So the deep belief that every one of us has, and this one doesn't matter what kind of parent you had or what kind of culture you're in, the deep belief that we all have is this perception of separateness. until we're really, really free. It's possible to wake up and recognize this oceanness and sense, oh yes, there's right now a temporary body-mind functioning, but the what I am, there's a timelessness to it. It's possible. But for most of us, we spend a lot of life moments very identified with a separate self. That's the core belief out of which every other painful belief arises. And let me just check around. Does that make sense, that every other painful belief arises out of that core sense of I'm separate? That if I'm separate, then, oh, I have something to fear. Others could be a threat to me. If I'm separate, oh, I'm incomplete, I'm missing something, I need this. If I'm separate, oh, other people have it better, jealous. If I'm separate, I don't have what it takes, depressed. Every emotion arises out of that pain of separation. This is Sri Nisargadatta, who's one of my favorite of the non-dual teachers. He says, as long as you imagine yourself to be something tangible and solid, a thing among things, you seem short-lived and vulnerable, and of course you will feel anxious to survive. But when you know yourself to be beyond space and time, you will be afraid no longer. So what he's pointing to is that all the real experiences we have are not true because they don't allow us to recognize that which is timeless. They keep us locked in a small separate self. They're not the truth. So we then begin to explore, is this idea and storyline of a separate self, this self-character we see going into the future that's trying to get happier and trying to feel better and trying to avoid danger, is that who we are? And is that all that we are? I mean, are you something more than this sense of a separate body-mind? Is there something more to what you are? It's probably the most important question we can ever ask ourselves. Because as long as all that we are, there's an exclusive identity with this ego, personality, body, self, we're going to fear the end, fear death. We're going to feel threatened. We're not going to be able to sense our connection with others. And we're not going to be able to sense that one timeless, radiant awareness that's really animating everything. We're cut off. So how do we begin to move from a stuck place? We're buying in. We're believing our beliefs. We're believing not only am I separate, I'm bad, and I'll never be loved, and I'll never get what I want, or whatever it is. How do we wake up from that? How do we start truly experiencing something larger? So I'll give you another example, because the first step really is to ask yourself, whenever you're suffering, just ask the question, what am I believing right now? Just ask yourself, what am I believing? And what you're really doing is you're asking the part of you that's stuck and in pain, what am I believing? The part that's afraid or ashamed, what's the view of the world through that part's eyes?
All right, so I don't know about you, but for me, that's really powerful stuff. You don't have to believe your thoughts, and you don't even have to think your own thoughts. You can identify your thoughts and think other thoughts. I find that to be really helpful. And then so that's that. Let me see if I've got some ability to do some other stuff. Let's see here. Okay, so I can do some more supplemental materials. So let's watch the next video.
One of my favorite stories that I'd like to open with, and some of you I suspect will remember this, took place in India a number of decades ago when the English had colonized India and they wanted to set up a golf course, which was, for many reasons, probably not a very good idea. But one of the big reasons was because, as it turned out, golf in Calcutta had this obstacle of these monkeys that would go into the course and take the balls that the golfers were golfing around and toss them everywhere. And it really, really upset the probably mostly guys that were playing golf. So they tried to control the monkeys. And their first way of trying to control the monkeys was to build these high fences around the fairway. Now, monkeys climb, So they would climb up the fences, and it just did not work. So the next thing they tried was to lure them away from the course, whatever. I don't know how they lured them, kind of waving bananas or something. But, for every monkey that would step away, all their relatives would come and join them in the fun. So in desperation, they started trapping and relocating them, and that didn't work either. The monkeys had too many relatives that were into this. So finally, they established a novel rule for this particular golf course, which is that golfers in Calcutta had to play the ball wherever the monkey dropped it. Now, they were onto something. This is what they might call Dharma 101. This is basic teachings that, as we all know, we want life to be a certain way, right? We want the conditions to be just so. And life never cooperates. Or it does maybe for a while, which makes us want to hold on tight, but then things change. And so what happens is that the monkeys are dropping the ball where we don't want them to be dropped. And if we're to find any peace, if we're to find any freedom, our job is to learn to pause and say, okay, this is where the monkeys drop the ball. So we can see, all the ways in our personal life it doesn't cooperate. We have losses, whether it's our bodies getting sick, our people we love having trouble, whether we run into an addictive relapse, whether we have a divorce, whether we lose our job. It's the ball's dropped and we just don't like where it is. And then we can see it globally, how this life doesn't cooperate. This year, just the tsunami in Japan and the horror of what happened with the nuclear proliferation, they're just really, really scary. And what's happening in so many places, I'm right now so struck with the prediction of 12 million people starving in Somalia, and I'm seeing nodding heads. Unless we really pay attention, we might not be aware of children, families, just at a massive scale suffering. So it's global. The way this life isn't the way we want it. And the question is, we can't change that it happens in some of the big ways. I mean, there's things we can control, but primarily the teaching is, it's not what's happening, it's how we respond.
All right, so next we got some reading of the supplemental materials. So we've got a short one here, so I'll knock that off. This is Freedom from Repetitive Thoughts. I'm not sure who the author is, I guess Jack Cornfield, all right. So there are a few basic principles for learning how to release the contractions and stuck places we encounter in meditation. One of the most helpful of these principles is called expanding the field of attention. A repeated difficulty will be predominantly felt in one of the four basic areas of mindfulness. It will come either in the realm of the body, in the realm of feelings, in the realm of mind, thoughts and images, or in the realm of our basic attitudes, grasping, fear, aversion, etc. Expanding the field of attention requires that we become aware of another dimension of the stuck place of our insistent visitor and not just notice its predominant face. This is because invariably we are stuck on a different level from the obvious one we have been noticing. Release will only take place when we can shift from that which is obvious to one of the other levels of awareness. In meditation, the most common insistent visitors are the repetitive thought patterns we call the top 10 tunes. Normally, when thoughts arise, we can simply acknowledge them and name them softly, thinking, and in the light of loving awareness, they will vanish like a cloud. However, the top 10 tunes, whether as words, images, or stories, will persist and return no matter how often they are noticed. They play like old records, repeating a theme over and over. At first, to gain perspective, we can number them 1 through 10. Oh, that is 3 on the hit parade this week. In that way, when we notice them, we don't have to play the record all the way through each time. We can more easily let them go, or we can use a variation of this technique and give them a humorous name or title. I have given names to many now familiar aspects of myself, such as the hungry ghost, Mr. Achiever, Attila the Hun, the frightened child, the impatient lover. In this way, the repeated stories and emotions of fear, sorrow, impatience, and loneliness become more familiar, and I can listen to their tales in a friendlier and open-hearted way. Hello, nice to see you again. What do you have to tell me today? However, this is not enough. Suppose we encounter a painful repeated story about the divorce of our parents It talks over and over about which children got to keep which possessions and who said what to whom. Such a story can play many times. As it does, we must expand our field of attention. How does this thought feel in our body? Oh, there is a tightness in the diaphragm and the chest. We can name this. Tightness, tightness, and stay kind and carefully attentive for some time. As we do, it may open to other sensations, and many new images and feelings will be released. In this way, we can first begin to release the physical contractions and bodily fear that we have held. Then we can expand the attention further to new feelings. What other feelings arise along with this thought pattern and this tightness? At first, they may be half hidden or unconscious, but if we sense carefully, the feelings will begin to show themselves. The tightness in the chest will become anger, then sadness, and the sadness may become grief. As we finally begin to grieve, the pattern will release. In a similar way, when we encounter a repeated physical pain or difficult mood, we can expand awareness to the level of thoughts to notice with loving awareness the story or belief that comes along with it. With careful attention, we may find a subtle belief about ourselves that perpetuates the pain or mood, perhaps a story about our unworthiness, such as "I'll always be this way." When we become aware of the story or belief and see it just as a thought, often untrue, the pattern can be released. But sometimes we need to open to the feeling level to release the stuck pattern. Repeated thoughts and stories are almost always fueled by an unacknowledged emotion or feeling underneath. These unsensed feelings are part of what brings the thought back time and time again. Future planning is usually fueled by anxiety. Remembering of the past is often fueled by regret or guilt or grief. Many fantasies arise as a response to pain or emptiness. The task in meditation is to drop below the level of the repeated recorded message to sense and feel emotional energy that brings it up. When we can do this and truly allow and come to terms with the feeling, the thought will no longer need to arise and the pattern will naturally fade away. Opening further, we can shift our awareness to the space around all things and experience the vast openness of mind that holds all these thoughts and feelings. This is an invitation to freedom. All right, so and then we've got some more here. So that's by Jack Kornfield. Now we have a letting go meditation. So I think this is I can't do any more than this for this video. So with that, next video I might be able to knock off some more of these. Probably not this whole 65. Well, I could put that on while I'm doing something else around the house. So we'll see. But for now, that's the end of this video, and that's completely it for week 3. Everything else is optional. I definitely got the essence of the week. I did everything that was asked of me mandatory. So completely done with week 3. I do have these optional things I can do later today if I want. But yeah, that's it for week 3. So stay tuned for week 4.